My parents gave my sister $100,000 for her wedding but told me, "You don't deserve any help." So I cut them off and moved on with my life. 3 years later, my sister drove past my $2 million home and called our mother sobbing. Why does she have that? Opening with a soft, melancholic piano melody that shifts to determined strings as the story progresses. Have you ever been told you're not good enough by the very people who should love you most? What if that cold, cutting judgment came not from a stranger, but from your own parents? And what if they then had the audacity to come begging for your help? That's my story, and it's a journey of pain, betrayal, and ultimately, a reclamation of my own worth. I grew up in Boston, what looked from the outside like the perfect American family. My dad was a surgeon, my mom a university professor. We had the nice house, the annual vacations, the whole picture-perfect scene. But beneath that polished surface, there was always an unspoken hierarchy. My older sister, Vanessa, was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She was smart, graceful, and always followed the path my parents laid out for her. She even looked more like Mom, with her honey blonde hair and blue eyes, while I took after Dad, darker and, apparently, a perpetual disappointment. This favoritism started early. When it was time for high school, Vanessa went to a prestigious private academy, costing $30,000 a year. No expense spared, my parents said. It would set her up for success. 2 years later, when it was my turn, "Tuition's too expensive now," Mom explained. "We need to be practical about finances." So, I went to public school. "Besides," she added, "you've always been more independent than your sister." Independence, I quickly realized, wasn't a personality trait. It was a necessity. While Vanessa got constant guidance, I learned to figure things out alone. Then came the cars. For Vanessa's 16th birthday, a brand new Honda Civic, with a big red bow on top, parked in the driveway. Photos, celebration. "We're so proud of you," Dad beamed. For my 16th? No car. "Get a part-time job if you want a vehicle," they suggested. So I did. Weekends and summers, I worked at a coffee shop, saving every penny for a 10-year-old Toyota with questionable brakes and no AC. "This will teach you the value of hard work," Dad remarked, as if this entire charade had been some grand, intentional lesson. The pattern continued. Vanessa got a trip to Europe after graduation. I was told college was expensive enough. She went to Northwestern, all expenses paid, with a comfortable off-campus apartment and a generous allowance. When my college applications came around, the conversation shifted dramatically. "We've already spent so much on education," Mom explained. "Student loans will teach you fiscal responsibility. Everyone has debt these days." I swallowed that bitter pill, got a partial scholarship to Boston University, and still took out substantial loans. I worked 20 hours a week, juggling studies and work, while Vanessa, I imagine, was living her best life. They even dictated our careers. Vanessa studied business, just as Dad wanted. I pursued marketing against their advice. "Marketing is for people who couldn't get into better programs," my father once sneered at a holiday dinner, not bothering to lower his voice. It stung deeply. But despite the constant comparisons, the quiet disapprovals, I excelled. Dean's List, competitive internships, a network of friends who became my chosen family. And then, during my junior year, I met John. John was studying computer engineering. Like me, he worked to pay for school. His parents were teachers, loving but clear that they couldn't finance his education. He embraced the challenge with grit. We connected instantly, over our shared experiences, our values. While Vanessa and I drifted further apart, John and I grew closer through every obstacle. We studied late, shared cheap meals, and dreamed of building something meaningful. After graduation, we both landed great jobs, moved in together, and meticulously budgeted, chipping away at our student loans. While Vanessa moved home, enjoying free housing and leisurely job hunting, John and I pushed forward, independently, together. 3 years after graduation, John proposed on a hike. No elaborate setup, no expensive ring, just a genuine moment, a simple gold band that had belonged to his grandmother. It meant more to me than any diamond ever could. "We don't need anything fancy," I told him. "Just something small, meaningful, with the people who truly care about us." We budgeted $10,000, months of careful saving, for a park ceremony and a reception at our favorite local restaurant. No designer dress, no extravagant florals. Just us. That was the plan, until Vanessa announced her engagement to Gregory. He was the son of one of Dad's hospital partners. Gregory had never worked a day in his life, trust fund baby, but he came from the right background, the right pedigree. My parents were ecstatic. This announcement, I didn't know then, would shatter everything. The night Vanessa called, my parents threw an impromptu celebration. Expensive catering, champagne, close family friends, all invited with just a few hours' notice. My invitation came via text, almost an afterthought. Your sister is engaged. Dinner at 7. Try to be on time. John and I arrived to a house already buzzing. Vanessa, with her enormous diamond, Gregory, charming everyone with stories of his Maldives proposal. Mom fluttered like a delighted butterfly. Dad clapped Gregory on the shoulder like a long-lost son. We're so thrilled to welcome Gregory, Mom announced at dinner. And, of course, we want to give them the wedding they deserve. Dad raised his glass. Which is why your mother and I have decided to give Vanessa and Gregory $100,000 toward their wedding expenses. Gasps of approval. Vanessa shrieked with delight. John tensed beside me, but I squeezed his hand. I was happy for my sister, genuinely, even as the stark contrast to our modest plans twisted in my stomach. Later, Vanessa pulled me aside, showing off her Pinterest board. Napa Valley, destination wedding, 200 guests minimum, designer gown, live band, she gushed. And you'll be a bridesmaid, of course. Not maid of honor, though. That's Olivia. Olivia, her college roommate, someone she'd known less than 5 years. I forced a smile, pushing down the sting. Sounds beautiful, Vanessa. John and I are planning something small, but we're excited too. Her enthusiasm dimmed. When are you thinking? In about 6 months. Riverside Park. Just close friends and family. She looked genuinely confused. 6 months? That's so soon. And outdoors? What if it rains? She couldn't comprehend simplicity. We want it intimate and meaningful, I explained, and we're working with what we can afford. She glanced at Mom and Dad. Well, I'm sure Mom and Dad will help you too, she said, though her tone suggested deep doubt. That conversation planted a tiny seed of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they'd offer some assistance. Not $100,000, but something to show they valued my happiness equally. The next weekend, John and I decided to talk to them. I called Mom. A pause, then she agreed to Sunday dinner. When we arrived, the atmosphere was different. Quiet. No special dinner. Just simple lasagna. Dad was watching golf. They made small talk, carefully avoiding the topic we were there to discuss. Finally, as Mom served coffee, I broached it. John and I have been planning our wedding. I began. Nothing elaborate, small ceremony, Martinelli's restaurant. We've been saving, but it's still tight with our loans and rent. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. Dad cleared his throat. And what exactly are you expecting from us? His tone immediately put me on the defensive. We're not expecting anything. John interjected, polite but firm. But Sarah thought it would be nice to discuss if you might want to contribute in some way, as is traditional in many families. Mom set down her cup with a sharp clink. Traditional is for traditional couples, she snapped. Couples who follow the proper order of things. What is that supposed to mean? I asked, a cold dread spreading through my chest. Dad leaned forward, folding his hands. It means, Sarah, that your sister has always made choices that align with our family values. She attended the right schools, pursued a respectable career path, and is marrying into a family that will enhance her social standing and security. While you, Mom continued, her eyes scanning John dismissively, have consistently chosen to do things your own way. You rejected our advice about college. You picked a career in advertising of all things, and now you're planning to marry. She trailed off, glancing at John as if he were an undesirable piece of furniture. A software engineer, John filled in, his voice steady despite the obvious insult. Someone we barely know, Dad corrected. Someone from a background that, frankly, does not match our family's social circle. I felt as if I'd been slapped. John is brilliant, kind, hardworking. His parents are educators. What exactly is wrong with his background? There's nothing wrong with being a school teacher, Mom said, in a tone that suggested quite the opposite. But Vanessa is making a match that will secure her future. Gregory's family has connections, resources, standing in the community. So this is about money? I asked, incredulous. It's about choices, Dad said firmly. And the simple fact is, Sarah, that you do not deserve the same help Vanessa does. You have not earned it. The words hit me like physical blows. Asterisk, you do not deserve. You have not earned it. Asterisk, my voice was barely a whisper. What would I have needed to do to deserve your support? Marry someone rich. Study what you wanted me to study. Be someone other than who I am. Mom sighed, as if I was being difficult. This attitude is exactly what we're talking about. Vanessa understands family obligation. She visits, attends functions, maintains the right social connections. What have you done besides pursue your own interests without any regard for how it affects us? We've worked hard, I said, tears burning. We've paid our own way, built careers we're proud of, found happiness together. I thought that would matter to you. What matters, Dad said coldly, is that we are giving Vanessa $100,000 for her wedding because she deserves it. We will attend your wedding as guests, but do not expect financial support. You have made your independent choices. Now live with them. John reached for my hand under the table, his touch a lifeline. I think we should go, he said quietly. As we stood, Mom delivered a final, crushing blow. Vanessa has always done everything right. I'm sorry to say it, Sarah, but you have been nothing but a disappointment. The drive home was a blur of tears, disbelief, and a profound, agonizing confirmation of what I'd always suspected. In their eyes, I would never measure up, not because of any failing on my part, but because I dared to be myself. That night, as John held me while I cried, I made a decision that would alter everything. If my family couldn't accept me as I was, maybe it was time to redefine what family meant. The next morning, I woke with swollen eyes, a physical ache in my chest. John had coffee ready, researching budget wedding venues. Maybe we cut the guest list even further, he suggested. Or push the date back. I shook my head. I can't believe they said those things. John reached for my hand. Their loss, he said simply. We're going to build an amazing life together, with or without their blessing. His quiet confidence grounded me, but I still needed to talk to Vanessa. I called her later that afternoon. Sarah, this is a surprise. Is everything okay? Her tone was pleasant, but distracted. Not really, I admitted. I had dinner with Mom and Dad last night, about the wedding. It didn't go well. Oh, she said, suddenly uncomfortable. They mentioned you might be asking for money. The casual assumption, the fact they'd already discussed it with her, stung. I wasn't asking for a handout, I clarified. I just thought they might contribute, like they are for yours. But they made it clear I don't deserve their help. A pause. Look, Sarah, I don't want to get in the middle, but you have to admit you've always done things your own way. You can't expect the same support when you don't follow the path they laid out. My throat tightened. So you agree? I'm undeserving because I made my own choices. Don't be so dramatic, she scoffed. It's not about deserving. It's about family expectations. I fulfilled them. You rebelled. Actions have consequences. Expectations like what? I challenged. Marrying someone wealthy? A career path I have no interest in. Don't be jealous of me because I chose the right path, Sarah, she snapped. Gregory and I share values with Mom and Dad. We participate in family traditions, maintain the right social connections. We consider how our choices reflect on the family name. What have you ever done except pursue your own agenda? It was eerily similar to Mom's words. In that moment, I knew. Vanessa wouldn't be my ally. She was too invested in her role as the golden child. I thought you might understand, I said quietly, or at least recognize how unfair this is. Life isn't fair, Sarah. Some of us work hard to maintain family harmony, while others just do whatever they want and then complain about the consequences. Look, I have to go. Gregory's waiting to look at venues. The call ended, and with it, my last hope for understanding from my family. In the weeks that followed, I buried myself in work. John worried, but he understood my need to focus, to build, rather than dwell on the pain. Meanwhile, Vanessa's wedding planning was full steam ahead. Mom sent group texts about venues, flowers, dress fittings. Each message was like salt in a wound, but I responded with brief, polite enthusiasm. Then came the formal bridesmaid invitation, 5 pre-wedding events, a nearly $1,000 dress, a luxury bachelorette weekend in Miami. The financial burden alone was significant, but the emotional toll? I couldn't bear it. After careful consideration, I called Vanessa. I can't be a bridesmaid, I told her, offering to attend as a regular guest. Her reaction was immediate, furious. This is so typical of you, Sarah. Always thinking of yourself instead of supporting your family. Everyone will ask why my own sister isn't in my wedding party. You can tell them the truth, I suggested. I can't afford the financial commitment right now. This isn't about money. This is about your attitude. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin my special day. No amount of explanation could convince her. The conversation ended with her threatening to uninvite me, though a formal invitation still arrived 2 weeks later. As the wedding approached, John and I debated attending. Part of me wanted to avoid the emotional minefield, but another part felt that not going would only reinforce their narrative about me being selfish. We'll go, John decided. Hold our heads high, be polite, and leave early if needed. We have nothing to be ashamed of. Vanessa's wedding day dawned bright and clear, a perfect June Saturday in a Napa Valley vineyard. John and I arrived, dressed well, but not ostentatiously. The venue was spectacular. Flowering vines, elegant tables, a string quartet. Every detail screamed expense and privilege. I made my way to the bridal suite. Vanessa, surrounded by her lavender-clad bridesmaids, looked stunning in a designer dress that probably cost more than our entire wedding budget. Sarah, she acknowledged me coolly. I'm glad you could make it. You look beautiful, I said sincerely. Congratulations. She accepted the compliment with a nod. Mom seated you and John at table 11, with the cousins from Dad's side. I hope that's okay. Table 11, I later discovered, was the farthest from the head table, tucked behind a floral arrangement. We were seated with distant relatives who seemed confused about who we were. One elderly great-aunt repeatedly asked John if he was the photographer boy. During the reception, my parents made their rounds, stopping at every table. When they reached ours, their greeting was cordial but brief. Sarah, John, glad you could make it, Dad said stiffly, as if we were business acquaintances. Lovely ceremony, I offered. Vanessa looks happy. She deserves it, Mom replied. She has always made us proud. The implication hung in the air, unlike you. The real knife twist came during the toasts. Dad stood, glass raised, and spoke about Vanessa growing into an exemplary woman who had fulfilled every hope they had for her. Vanessa has never taken a misstep, he said proudly. Every choice, every decision has been thoughtful and aligned with our family values. And now she has found a partner who shares those values and will help her continue our family legacy of excellence. Mom followed, highlighting Vanessa's adherence to tradition and family duty. Some children follow their own path, she said, her gaze briefly finding me in the crowd. But Vanessa has always understood the importance of family expectations. This wedding, which we are proud to fully support, is a testament to her character. Later, on the dance floor, I overheard Mom talking to a friend. My younger daughter has never quite lived up to family expectations, she was saying. Such a shame, but what can you do? They make their choices. That was the final straw. I found John at the bar. I need to leave, I whispered. We slipped out quietly during a group dance, driving back to our hotel in silence. Back in our room, I broke down. I can't do this anymore, I sobbed. They will never see me as good enough. Nothing I accomplish will ever matter because it's not what they wanted for me. John held me, letting me cry. Then maybe it's time to stop trying to earn their approval, he said finally. Maybe it's time to build a life that makes you proud, regardless of what they think. That night, we made 2 significant decisions. First, we would postpone our wedding indefinitely. The idea of a celebration focused on family felt hollow now. Second, and more importantly, I would establish clear boundaries with my parents and sister. No more subjecting myself to their judgment, their conditional love. The next morning, I blocked their numbers, their social media accounts. I sent a brief email explaining that I needed space, that I would contact them when I was ready. Then John and I returned home, ready to build our future without their shadow. It was the hardest decision I ever made, but also the most liberating. Little did I know, this painful break would set us on a path to success beyond anything I could have imagined. The first year was the hardest. Birthdays, holidays, random Tuesday evenings when a childhood memory surfaced. I grieved, not just for the relationship we had, but for the one I always hoped we might develop. The silence from their end was deafening. No calls, no emails asking me to reconsider. It only confirmed what I'd always known. Their love was conditional, based on my compliance, not my inherent worth. John suggested therapy, and reluctantly, I agreed. My therapist, Dr. Levine, helped me understand the patterns of emotional neglect. What your parents did is called conditional parenting, she explained. Love and approval are given only when the child meets certain expectations. It's damaging because it teaches children their inherent value is tied to performance. But why did they treat Vanessa differently? I asked, the question that had haunted me for years. Some parents unconsciously designate roles, she said. The golden child, the scapegoat. It says more about their own needs and insecurities than about either of you. Week by week, I began to untangle my sense of self from their expectations. I realized the qualities they criticized, my independence, my determination, were actually my greatest strengths. One evening, as John and I discussed a therapy breakthrough, he suggested a shift. I know processing your family stuff is important, he said. But what if we also put energy into building the future we want, not as a reaction to them, but as a positive choice for ourselves? His words resonated deep inside me. For so long, I had defined myself in opposition to them. What would it look like to define myself by my own aspirations? The next day, I created a vision board. Not luxury cars, but meaningful goals, financial independence, work that made a difference, a home that felt safe, relationships based on mutual respect. John and I both threw ourselves into our careers. I, at my marketing agency, quickly gaining a reputation for innovative campaigns. When a major client requested me, my boss gave me the lead, a small team. The project was challenging, high profile, but the results exceeded expectations, earning industry recognition. 6 months later, I was promoted to associate director with a substantial raise. John's trajectory was similar. His coding skills caught the attention of senior management. He was tapped to lead a new software platform, a promotion that came with stock options and nearly doubled his salary. One night, celebrating his promotion, John raised an idea that changed everything. What if we started our own company? Combining my technical skills with your marketing expertise, there's a gap in the market. The idea took root. We spent evenings and weekends developing a business plan. 6 months later, Digital Nexus was born, operating from our apartment living room. The early days were challenging. We invested most of our savings, working 16-hour days. John handled technical development. I focused on client acquisition. Our first client, a small local business, took a chance on us, impressed by our personalized approach. The project was a success, leading to referrals. 4 months in, we landed our first major client, a regional restaurant chain needing a complete digital overhaul. The pressure was immense. The night before the client presentation, we worked until 3 a.m., fine-tuning every detail. I looked across our makeshift home office at John, his face illuminated by the screen, and felt a surge of gratitude. My biological family had dismissed our potential, but we were building something meaningful together. The presentation was a triumph. The client not only approved our work, but referred us to several partners. Within 6 months, we leased a small office, hired 3 full-time employees. By the end of our first year, Digital Nexus was thriving, with a team of 12 and several recognizable brands on our roster. Through it all, my family remained absent. Occasionally, a generic birthday card from mom, a holiday mass email, including me among dozens. Dad never reached out. Vanessa sent a stiff announcement of her first pregnancy, addressed to Sarah and guest, rather than including John by name. These small reminders still hurt, but the pain was dulled by the joy and fulfillment I found in the life John and I were creating. We had built a chosen family of friends and mentors who celebrated our successes and stood by us. On our 3rd anniversary, John suggested we revisit the idea of getting married. Not a big production, he clarified, just something intimate, with the people who have actually been there for us. 2 months later, we exchanged vows in the garden of our favorite restaurant, surrounded by 20 friends who had become family. Sophia, my colleague, was my maid of honor. John's best friend from college was his best man. No elaborate florals, no designer attire. Just sincere vows and genuine celebration. The total cost? Just under $8,000, a fraction of Vanessa's wedding. But as we danced under string lights, with people who truly cared, I knew our celebration held something money couldn't buy: authenticity. I did not invite my parents or Vanessa. The decision brought some sadness, but also a profound sense of protection for this new chapter. Our wedding wouldn't be tainted by their judgment or conditional approval. The months following our wedding brought unexpected developments for Digital Nexus. A case study about one of our campaigns went viral in industry circles, attracting attention from larger clients and investors. Suddenly, we were fielding calls from venture capitalists. After careful negotiation, we accepted an investment that allowed us to scale significantly while maintaining control. We moved to larger offices, expanded to 30 people, and developed proprietary software. 18 months later, a major tech company approached us about acquiring Digital Nexus. The initial offer was substantial, but we were hesitant to give up what we'd built. After several rounds, we reached an agreement that exceeded our wildest expectations, $20 million, with both of us retained as consultants for 2 years. The night the papers were signed, John and I sat on the floor of our apartment, a bottle of champagne between us, slightly dazed. "We did it," John whispered, his voice catching. "We really did it." I thought about the journey from that painful dinner with my parents to this moment of extraordinary success. Every dismissal, every judgment, every time they told me I wasn't good enough had ultimately pushed me to prove, not to them, but to myself, that I could create a life of meaning and achievement on my own terms. "I want to buy a house," I said suddenly. "A real home, somewhere we can put down roots." John smiled. "I was thinking the same thing. Let's start looking tomorrow." Little did I know, our new home would become the catalyst for an unexpected confrontation with the past I'd worked so hard to leave behind. With our newfound financial security, John and I searched for our dream home. Not ostentatious, but spacious, private, reflecting our aesthetic. 3 months later, we found it. A stunning contemporary home in an exclusive neighborhood, 2 acres, city skyline views. Architectural perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a gourmet kitchen, a spa-like primary suite, 3 additional bedrooms, an office suite. Outside, a landscaped garden, an infinity pool, a covered patio. It was the antithesis of my parents' traditional colonial. The asking price was just under $2 million. Now, we could purchase it outright, no mortgage. The day we signed, I felt an achievement that went beyond material acquisition. This home represented freedom, the tangible result of following my own path, despite the disapproval of those who should have supported me most. We took our time furnishing it, creating a true home, where we hosted friends, celebrated holidays, built our life. Meanwhile, we launched a new business, a software platform for small businesses. With our experience and connections, this company grew even faster. Within 18 months, offices in 3 cities, a valuation exceeding our first success. As our achievements accumulated, I occasionally heard snippets about my family through mutual acquaintances. Dad had been named in a medical malpractice lawsuit, damaging his reputation. The settlement was substantial, forcing my parents to downsize their home, adjust their lifestyle. Vanessa's marriage to Gregory hit rough waters. His family wealth, the primary factor in my parents' approval, turned out to be mostly illusion. When his father's company faced bankruptcy, Gregory lost his nominal job. He struggled to find work. Vanessa and Gregory were forced to sell their recently purchased home, moving to a modest townhouse in a middle-class suburb, the kind of place my parents had always subtly disparaged. Vanessa had taken a job in corporate marketing, finally putting her business degree to use out of necessity. These developments didn't bring me joy. Despite everything, I didn't wish hardship on them. But there was a certain poetic justice in the collapse of the very things they had valued above genuine connection and unconditional love. One bright spring Saturday, John and I were enjoying breakfast on our patio, discussing plans for a charity gala we were hosting. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia, one of the few who knew my family history. "Just saw your sister driving slowly past your house. Thought you should know." A chill ran through me despite the warm sun. Sophia lived 3 houses down. She'd met Vanessa once at our wedding. The recognition was unsettling. The idea of Vanessa spying was deeply disturbing. "Are you sure?" I texted back. "Positive." She stopped across the street for several minutes, just staring. I made eye contact. She drove away immediately. I showed John. He frowned. "That's strange. Curious, or something else?" "I have no idea," I admitted. "We haven't spoken in over 3 years." Later that afternoon, my question was answered. My phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in years. My mother. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won. Hello. I answered cautiously. Sarah? Is that really you? Mom's voice sounded older, more tentative than I remembered. Yes, it is. Is everything okay? Despite everything, my first thought was concern. Yes. Well, as okay as can be expected. She paused. I think we're overdue for a conversation, don't you? It's been too long. The casual way she referred to our estrangement, as if it had been a mutual decision rather than a direct response to their rejection, made me grip the phone tighter. Why are you calling now, after all this time? I asked directly. Another pause. We miss you, Sarah. Family shouldn't be apart like this. And well, Vanessa mentioned she happened to drive by your new home today. It looks quite impressive. There it was. Not concern for my well-being, not regret for past treatment. Awareness of my financial success. She didn't happen to drive by. I corrected her. We live in a gated community, 40 minutes from her neighborhood. She would have had to deliberately seek out our address. Well, regardless, Mom continued, glossing over my point. It made us realize how long it's been. We'd love to visit your new home, reconnect, put the past behind us. I closed my eyes, processing the sudden reappearance of my family. 3 years of silence. Then Vanessa drives by my house, and suddenly they want to reconcile? I need to think about this, I said finally. I'll call you back. John listened as I recounted the conversation. His expression grew more concerned. Sounds like they found out you're successful, and now they want to be part of it, he observed. The timing is suspicious, to say the least. I nodded, the same thought having crossed my mind. But a part of me wondered if I should at least hear them out, not for their sake, but for my own closure. After much discussion, we agreed to a limited meeting. I would invite them to our home, establish clear boundaries, and see if genuine reconciliation was possible, or if their motives were as self-serving as we suspected. I called Mom back the next day. You can come for coffee this Saturday at 2, I said, my tone neutral. Just to talk. Wonderful, she exclaimed. Your father and I will be there. Should we bring anything? Just yourselves, I replied. And Mom, Vanessa is welcome to come too. A moment of silence. Oh, I'll let her know. I'm sure she'd love to see you. After ending the call, I felt a mixture of anxiety and resolution. Whatever happened on Saturday, I would face my family from a position of strength, secure in the life and identity I had built. They no longer held power over my sense of worth. Saturday arrived, clear skies, mild temperatures. John and I prepared coffee, tea, pastries, setting everything on the patio overlooking the pool. As 2 p.m. approached, we positioned ourselves in the living room, visible through the windows, but not waiting anxiously at the door. At precisely 2, security called. Minutes later, a car I didn't recognize pulled into our circular driveway. Dad emerged first, then Mom, both looking older. Last was Vanessa, her expression unreadable. John squeezed my hand. The moment had arrived. To face the family who had once told me I didn't deserve their support. Only now, I was standing in a $2 million home, a home I had earned entirely without them. Opening the door to them after 3 years felt surreal. Dad had more gray, deep lines around his eyes. Mom looked thinner, her carefully maintained appearance showing strain. Vanessa, clutching a designer purse, had the pinched expression of someone trying hard to appear unbothered. Sarah, Mom said, stepping forward, arms outstretched as if the years of silence had been a minor misunderstanding. You look wonderful. I accepted her brief hug without returning it, then nodded to Dad and Vanessa. Please, come in. Their eyes darted around our entryway, the soaring ceiling, the modern chandelier, the original artwork. Mom made a small noise of appreciation. Dad straightened his shoulders, as if preparing for a business meeting. Your home is lovely, Mom offered as I led them through. So contemporary. Thank you, John replied, stepping forward to stand beside me. We designed some elements ourselves. Dad extended his hand stiffly. John, you're looking well. As are you, sir, John replied with professional courtesy. I gestured to the patio. I thought we could sit outside. The weather's perfect. They followed us out to the patio. The spectacular view provided a natural distraction. The open space prevented any feeling of being trapped. As we settled, an awkward silence fell. I made no move to break it, curious how they would begin this conversation they had requested. Well, Mom finally said, reaching for a pastry. This is nice. Family together again. Is it? I asked, my voice calm but direct. Family together again after 3 years without a word. Dad cleared his throat. Now, Sarah, there's no need for hostility. We're here to reconnect. I'm not being hostile, I clarified. Just realistic. You wanted this meeting, so I assume you have something specific to discuss. Mom shot a glance at Dad. We've missed you, she said, her voice taking on that placating tone she'd always used. We think it's time to put the past behind us. What past are we referring to exactly? I asked. The part where you told me I didn't deserve your support? Or the part where you called me a disappointment for making my own choices? Vanessa, who had been silent, shifted uncomfortably. We all say things we regret in the heat of the moment, she offered. It wasn't the heat of the moment, I corrected her. It was a consistent pattern throughout my life. And it wasn't just words, it was actions. Or rather, the lack of them. Dad set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. We may have been too harsh, he conceded, the closest thing to an apology I'd ever heard from him. But you've clearly done well for yourself. This property, your business success, it's all very impressive. There it was. Acknowledgement of my financial achievement, not any recognition of the pain they had caused. I noticed he spoke of your business success rather than asking any specific questions about what John and I actually did. We've worked hard, John said, his tone neutral. Built 2 successful companies from the ground up. Yes, we heard about your software venture, Mom said, brightening. Patricia Wilson, her son works in tech. He mentioned your name at their dinner party last month. We were so proud to say you were our daughter. The irony was almost painful. After years of disappointment in my career choices, they were now claiming pride in my success, but only after it had been validated by their social circle. Funny, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. I don't recall you being proud when I first launched the business. In fact, I don't recall hearing from you at all. Dad waved his hand dismissively. Water under the bridge. The important thing is family coming together now. Why now? John asked directly. Why? After 3 years of no contact. The question hung in the air, uncomfortable but necessary. Mom glanced at Vanessa, then back at me. Well, family shouldn't stay estranged, she said vaguely. And when we realized how well you were doing, it seemed silly to maintain old grievances. When you realized how well we were doing, I repeated, after Vanessa drove by our house. Vanessa flushed slightly. It wasn't like that. I heard through a colleague that you'd moved to this neighborhood. I was just curious. Curious enough to look up our address and drive 40 minutes to see it, but not curious enough to call or email in 3 years. The conversation stalled again. The pastries on the table remained untouched. Dad, always the pragmatist, decided to change tactics. The truth is, Sarah, he said, leaning forward. Our family has hit a rough patch. I don't know if you heard about the lawsuit. I heard, I said simply. He nodded, relieved. The settlement was substantial. Insurance covered some, but not all. We've had to make adjustments. Dad had to take early retirement, Vanessa added, and sell the house. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I took no pleasure in their difficulties. And Gregory's family situation has been challenging as well, Mom continued, glancing sympathetically at Vanessa. The Harringtons aren't quite as established as we had believed. Vanessa looked down at her hands. Gregory's been between positions for almost a year now. And with the baby coming. You're pregnant? I asked, genuinely surprised. She nodded, a flicker of real emotion crossing her face. 5 months. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of connection for this unborn niece I might never know. But the feeling was quickly overshadowed by the realization that this entire reunion had an ulterior motive. It was becoming increasingly clear. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Children are a blessing. Mom seized on this moment of warmth. They are indeed, which is why family is so important. Supporting each other through challenges, celebrating successes together. Dad, less patient with the indirect approach, cut to the chase. The medical community can be unforgiving after a malpractice case. Rebuilding my reputation requires connections, resources. And Gregory needs investors for his new business venture, Vanessa added. Something in tech, like what you and John do. He has excellent ideas, just needs the right backing. And of course, Mom concluded, families should support each other. The way we supported Vanessa's wedding, for instance. It's just what families do. The audacity was breathtaking. After telling me I didn't deserve their support, after years of silence, they were now sitting in my home, expecting financial assistance. Not because they acknowledged their past behavior or showed genuine remorse, but simply because we shared DNA, and I now had resources they wanted access to. I looked at John, finding in his eyes the steadiness that had been my true support through everything. Then I turned back to my family, feeling strangely calm and clear. I think I understand now why you wanted to reconnect, I said, my voice even. And I appreciate your honesty, even if it took seeing my home to bring it about. Mom smiled, seemingly relieved that the subtext was now text. So you'll help? We're thinking a loan to start, perhaps $200,000 to help your father reestablish his consulting practice. And maybe the same for Gregory's venture. Family investing in family. The casual way she named these substantial sums, as if they were insignificant tokens, confirmed everything I needed to know. I stood up slowly, straightening to my full height. I need to be honest with you too, I said. I didn't invite you here today to negotiate financial arrangements. I invited you because part of me wondered if genuine reconciliation was possible. Dad frowned, sensing the shift. Sarah, don't be dramatic. We're simply discussing practical family matters. No, I corrected him. You are asking for financial help from the daughter you explicitly told was undeserving of your support. The daughter whose life choices you criticized and whose wedding you refused to contribute to because, and I quote, I had not earned it. Vanessa interjected. That was different. We didn't know you would become so successful. Her words hung in the air. The naked truth, finally exposed. Their treatment of me had been based on a calculation of what I could provide, not on unconditional love. Thank you for that clarification, Vanessa, I said quietly. It tells me everything I need to know. I turned to my parents, feeling not anger, but a profound sadness for what might have been. I think you should leave now. All of you. Mom's gasp was theatrical. You're throwing us out? Your own family. I am asking you to leave my home, I corrected. The home I built without your support or approval. The home that apparently only made me worthy of your attention once you saw it. Dad stood abruptly. This is outrageous. After all we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked, genuinely curious about his perception. He sputtered, unable to provide specific examples. You raised me, educated me. You provided the legal minimum required of parents, I countered, and made it clear at every turn that I was less valuable than my sister because I didn't conform to your expectations. So you won't help us? Vanessa asked, her voice small. Not even for your niece? The appeal to family obligation was ironic, coming from someone who had stood by silently while my worth was dismissed. Still, I felt a twinge of compassion for the unborn child. I will not be financially supporting Dad's career rehabilitation or Gregory's business venture, I said firmly. But I would be willing to set up an education fund for your daughter, provided it's in her name only and cannot be accessed for any other purpose. My offer, meant as a genuine olive branch to my future niece, was met with indignation. How dare you dictate terms to us? Mom snapped, as if we can't be trusted with our own granddaughter's future. John, who had remained admirably restrained, finally spoke. I think Sarah has been more than generous, given the circumstances. Now, I suggest you respect her request to leave. Dad glared at him. This conversation is between family members. John is my family, I said firmly. The family I chose, who has supported me unconditionally. Something the three of you might want to reflect on. There was a moment of tense silence before Dad turned and headed for the door. Mom followed, pausing only to say, You will regret this selfishness, Sarah. When we're gone, you will wish you had been a better daughter. Vanessa lingered briefly, something unreadable in her expression. For a moment, I thought she might say something meaningful, perhaps even acknowledge the inequity of our childhood. Instead, she just said, The offer for the baby fund, does it still stand? It does, I confirmed. Contact my lawyer and we'll arrange it. She nodded once, then followed our parents. I watched through the window as they drove away, their car growing smaller until it disappeared beyond our gates. Only then did I allow myself to sink into a chair, emotionally exhausted. Are you okay? John asked, sitting beside me. I don't know, I admitted. but I think I will be. What I couldn't have anticipated was the flood of emails, texts, and voicemails that began arriving within hours. Dad demanding reconsideration. Mom alternating between guilt trips and thinly veiled threats about being written out of their will. Vanessa pleading for me to understand their difficult situation. Each message confirmed I had made the right decision. They still saw me not as a person deserving of respect, but as a resource to be accessed when convenient. That night, I decided to send one final message, an email to all three, expressing exactly what I had learned. It would be my last communication for a very long time. The days following that visit were emotionally turbulent. I fluctuated between certainty that I had done space and comfort, never once suggesting I'd made the wrong choice. You set a boundary, he reminded me. That's not rejection. It's self-protection. A week later, I sat at my desk, overlooking our garden, and composed the email I'd been drafting in my mind. It was my final word, a closing statement. Dear Mom, Dad, and Vanessa, I wrote. I have given our recent reunion considerable thought. I want to be clear that this email is not written in anger, but from a place of clarity that has taken years to achieve. I do not hate any of you. I do not wish you ill. In fact, I hope you find your way through your current challenges. However, I cannot provide the financial assistance you are seeking. This is not about punishing you for past behavior or withholding out of spite. It is about recognizing that our relationship has never been based on mutual respect or unconditional love, but rather on my compliance with your expectations. For Vanessa, I have arranged an education trust for your daughter as promised. My lawyer will contact you with the details. This is not because I feel obligated, but because I want your child to have options, regardless of our complicated history. Beyond this, I ask that you respect my decision to maintain distance. The 3 years we spent apart were painful, but also healing. I built a life that brings me joy and fulfillment, surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide or how I reflect on them. If someday you are interested in a relationship based on genuine connection rather than financial need, I might be open to that conversation. Until then, I wish you well, but need to protect the peace and happiness I have worked so hard to create. Sarah. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then closed my laptop. There was a finality to the action that brought both sadness and relief. I had said what needed to be said, without cruelty, but also without compromise. The response was predictable. Dad sent a terse message calling me selfish and ungrateful. Mom wrote a lengthy email detailing her sacrifices, concluding I was breaking her heart. Vanessa thanked me for the trust fund, but suggested I was being unnecessarily harsh with our aging parents. I did not respond. Instead, John and I focused on moving forward. We established a scholarship foundation for first-generation college students, particularly those pursuing entrepreneurship without family financial support. It provided not just tuition, but mentorship and networking, the kind of support I'd wished for. We also created an incubator program for women-owned startups. Watching these businesses grow from concept to thriving enterprises brought a satisfaction deeper than any luxury purchase. In our personal life, we nurtured our chosen family, our friends. We hosted dinners, celebrated milestones, supported each other. These relationships, based on mutual respect, showed me what healthy connections truly looked like. 6 months after the confrontation, I discovered I was pregnant. The joy and trepidation of impending parenthood sparked deep reflection. I wanted our child to know unconditional love. Their worth is not tied to achievements or compliance, I told John one night. They will know, he assured me, because we both understand how important that is. As my pregnancy progressed, I thought often about the patterns of family dysfunction. I read books, joined support groups, even resumed therapy to process my own childhood before bringing a new life into the world. One evening, sorting through old photographs for a baby memory book, I found a picture of myself at 7, standing proudly beside a science fair project. My smile was wide, my posture confident. I remembered that day, the excitement, the blue ribbon I'd won. What I also remembered, with adult perspective, was my parents' lukewarm response. Second place is nice, Dad had said. Vanessa won first last year. Looking at that hopeful child, I made a silent promise to my unborn baby. Asterisk, you will never be compared. Your achievements will be celebrated for their own merit, not measured against someone else's standard. Your worth will never be in question. Asterisk 2 months later, our daughter Emma was born. Healthy, 7 pounds. John's eyes, my determined chin. Holding her, I felt a love so pure, so unconditional, that it highlighted by contrast the conditional nature of the love I had received. My parents and Vanessa sent obligatory cards and gifts. I sent polite thank you notes, but did not extend invitations. The boundaries I had established remained, perhaps even more so now that I was responsible for protecting not just myself, but my child. As Emma grew, I watched with wonder, delighting in her uniqueness. We encouraged her curiosity without judgment or expectation. On her 3rd birthday, celebrating with our chosen family, I reflected on the journey. From that painful dinner where my parents declared me undeserving, to building thriving businesses, to this moment of simple joy, watching my daughter blow out candles, supported by people who loved us authentically. The greatest success in my life wasn't the $2 million home or the profitable businesses, though those achievements were significant. It was building a life aligned with my own values, rather than someone else's expectations. It was creating a family culture based on acceptance and support, rather than conditional approval and comparison. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can receive is the rejection that forces us to find our own path. My parents telling me I didn't deserve their help pushed me to prove, not to them, but to myself, that I could create something meaningful on my own terms. Their rejection, painful as it was, ultimately freed me from the constraints of their narrow definition of success. The family we are born into shapes us, but it does not define us. Sometimes we must create our own definition of family, gathering people who see our worth and support our authentic selves. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to maintain boundaries with those who cannot, or will not, offer the respect and acceptance we deserve. I don't know if my relationship with my parents and sister will ever heal. What I do know is that I am no longer waiting for their approval or validation. I am too busy living a life that makes me proud, raising a daughter who will never question her inherent value, and contributing to a world that recognizes worth beyond material success or social standing. I didn't build this life to prove anything to my family, but I have come to understand that sometimes the cruelest rejections open the most beautiful doors. You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only option. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own path? How did you handle that incredibly difficult decision? Tell me your story in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you think.